Whoa.
Hi. We're keeping it.
Oh, God. Okay.
In 3, 2, 1, tennis.
Hello. Welcome.
Welcome back, everybody. Feels like we did this just yesterday.
Thank you. You need to take over intros.
Yeah, our plan for intros, she said, what do you want to do for an intro? And I said, you say something and I'll say hi, guys, which is what I've said 17 times.
Are we on episode 17?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, good for you
I
to remember
so.
that. So
Don't quote me on that.
here we are. We're still working out the format of what we say, obviously, at the beginning. But also, no, I shouldn't say working out the format. We don't have a format. This week...
What we say, what the format is, what the name of the podcast is.
Who are we?
What episode
are we doing?
on?
Where are we at? What day is it? So today we're doing a Q&A.
Yeah, which is something we put it to you guys last week.
Yesterday.
Amazingly, we actually don't have a gap of months in between this and the last one. So, yeah, we put it to you guys and got some really great questions, of which we could only pick a few because there's so much to say on almost all of them.
So it's going to be a multi-episode feature.
Cool.
Like, maybe not every episode will be Q&A style, but we're saving them.
Great.
So, first let's talk about what we're wearing. Tell me about your hat.
I'm wearing something called the Siege hat. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
Don't know if you've seen him wearing it lately.
Kind of committed to it. This one...
I think you were wearing it last
No,
week.
I was wearing a darker green one.
Oh.
The only interesting thing I can say about this one is I knit it in the leftover color from my Atari sweater.
Yes.
So it's like a matching baby set. I have a sweater and my own matching hat.
It's like a layette.
Not the only time. One of the first sweaters you ever knit me was a gray sweater with hearts on the sleeves. This is before we dyed yarn. And I got matching mittens with hearts on the hands too.
Oh, I have a vague recollection of that. Are they lost?
The mittens are gone. The sweater I wear all the time.
Where are they gone?
The sands of time.
Do you know, I think you lost one on the metro. I remember.
Yep, very much.
You were sad. He was sad. It was an accident.
Yeah. It was something that I wore to work quite often when we were working in restaurants.
Well, that's sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. I am wearing my Little Waves cardigan by Gudrun Johnston, and it's she designed it for Brooklyn Tweed. I knit it in Brooklyn Tweed yarn, and I love it. It's beautiful in the tartan colorway.
The Brooklyn Tweed patterns are real staples around here. I find that the attention to detail and the shaping and stuff is always elements that we come back to and reference for.
They're beautiful
for
patterns.
sweaters.
I mean, yeah, their patterns are beautiful. Their standard of what they put out there is super high, and Gudrun is an amazing designer. Like before, during, after. I don't know if she still is associated with them. I think she might be. I don't think this was part for when she worked with them, like as part of their team. I think this was pre that,
Okay.
as like a wool people design. At any rate, nothing but they're fantastic, and I really do like this sweater. I'm going to talk more about it later when you ask me a question.
Sounds good.
Do you want to kick into it?
Yeah, we're going to get right into that.
Yeah.
All right, let me get my professional setup here. Piece of paper with some colorful sketches on the back of it. So I went through the questions. There was like a good amount of them, and we just picked a couple to start with, what I felt like would be a manageable amount. We'll try not to run on, but we'll try to give you as much info as seems pertinent for the question. So first one is, how do your work days look? How much time do you spend doing each part of the process?
Okay.
Like this could be a 5-part series.
Yeah.
But we'll try to keep it concise.
So one thing that I'll say is that I think that as a small business owner, every day is different because you have so many jobs to do, right? And we split up the tasks very specifically, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are some things that I do and some things that you do. So do you want to talk about what you do? Because your days, I think, are more consistent than my days.
They are. Days that I work are very consistent because it is split into 2 parts, one being the vast majority, which is dyeing the yarn. The other is post office runs, which is not as straightforward as you would think because we do 2. We do Canada Post, and then we do an international shipper as well.
Yes.
And they're not super close to us. They were closer before we moved, so we really try not to do it every day like we used to. I used to bike and just fill up the wagon and go with a kid.
Yeah.
At the end of every
So
work
I'm
day.
just going to give a teensy bit more information. When we mail within Canada Post, we mail a volume of packages that like we have to go to a Canada Post. Would you call it a depot? Like what is it? It's
like a central location.
Essential,
Not a pharmacy one or anything.
Yeah, you can't just go to one in a pharmacy.
I need to go somewhere where they have large bins.
So Chris pulls up. I mean, and you're not the only business that goes there. Like
I feel like that's the bulk of it.
Yeah, you show up. They wheel out a chariot.
A cart.
Yeah. You dump it in, and like everything is paid for ahead of time. We pay for it here. You don't stand there and like they don't measure every package for us there. So we do that, and that's a specific one we have to drive to. I mean, it's not far. Like it's definitely it's it's still within the suburbs zone that we live, but 15 minutes to drive there, whereas we used to be a short bike ride away,
right.
Which we didn't know, but that's not why we moved to where we moved before.
No, but it was handy.
And then we also use Chit Chats for all of our US and international packages. And I think I mentioned it like 2 years ago in one of our podcasts, but basically it's like we're in Canada and we ship a lot to the US. To ship to the US using Canada Post is very expensive if you want tracking. To ship to the US using Chit Chats, it's a service offered in Canada where we pay USPS. It ships with USPS, and so there's tracking. It's
they essentially courier it across the border, right, to upstate New York, maybe. Or,
And we're lucky that since we live in Montreal, we have a Chit Chats drop-off location, because the way that it works, if you don't live close to one, I think it's quite impractical. You wouldn't do it, because then I think you'd have to like FedEx a box of packages to Chit Chats, and then they would do it. They would ship it for you, which I guess some people still do. Like perhaps that is still worth it. But anyways, just to say. That's why I wanted to explain the post office. I'm trying to give a lot of inside information.
I'm very brief, so Tan can fill in.
I'll elaborate.
Essential gaps.
Chris is a man of few words.
So that takes.
But just to say that, we usually plan that to be like an afternoon.
That will be once a week.
And you do he'll do groceries and other errands because he's like out and about.
Yeah.
But it's usually a one-person show because we have a minivan that we love. And he takes out the seats and fills it up and goes. It's a big deal.
Yeah, on bigger days.
And then he does other errands and whatnot. And typically I don't have you die on days when you're doing post office because it really breaks up the day.
Yeah, and that brings me to the bulk of our work. Sometime between 9 a.m. and 3:30, we have to squeeze in all the dyeing. So what that means, a big part of dyeing is having a yarn soaked and ready to dye. So it's in bins for, at the minimum, a couple hours, which means if you're going to be dyeing a base, particularly something with silk content, which takes longer to absorb water.
So our willow base, which is it's a silk linen. It
needs overnight. It needs to sit overnight.
It takes a long
to
time
not have
to
the air
fully
pockets of dry yarn, because once you lay stuff out or even just dip directly into a pot of water with the dye already in it, you want it to absorb quickly and evenly, so you can't have any dry patches on the yarn. Mm-hmm. So that's a really essential part of it, and often very time consuming if we're dealing with minis or half skeins.
Yes.
You can't have them tangled. It's got to be done one by one, neatly laid out in bins, then neatly laid out on my dyeing table or into pots, and then carefully handled from there. So that's a big part of it. I would say that's like a quarter of the actual time would be soaking it and prepping it. The dyeing itself, I'm currently dyeing. So you can be strategic about it. I have on extremely low heat some pots of actually natural right now, because I don't think I'd leave anything with color unattended to for the duration of this podcast. Yeah. But on the lowest settings, you can leave the natural. And if any of you are wondering, why would I dye natural? The natural is soaked and heated and rinsed exactly like all the other yarns. Mm-hmm. So it'll have the same texture, the same bounce, the same feel if you're doing a project with natural and a yarn of color.
Yeah.
But that makes it the hardest one to dye. Your pots have to be meticulously clean.
Yes.
What you rested in after, because you never want to change temperature of the yarn quickly. It's got to come up to whatever heat is necessary slowly and come back down slowly. You never want to shock it. It's terrible for the wool.
It'll felt it.
Even
superwash wool, it can change the texture.
Yeah.
We don't have, well, I don't want to. We don't deal with much superwash. That's all. I was like, didn't want to go on about superwash.
We have in the
but
past, though. But the thing is,
just saying, any wool,
you have to be super careful. You
delicate.
never want to do anything drastic to it. So it's a long process. You have to time manage in that sense, especially richer colors that take a while to set. Anything with a turquoise in it, anything with a deep red in it, is going to need a long time in the pots and then a long time afterwards to sit. So it's a big part of what I do is, I can't take on a bunch of deep colors at 2:00, knowing that the kids are going to be home at 3:30 or 4.
We really try to wrap it up. So Chris does most of our carpooling, most of our shuttling back and forth.
In nicer weather, we'll split it up, and Tan will walk to get
and we do more
boys,
walking
and I'll
biking.
bike
But
to get
now that
Willow.
it's chauffeur season, Chris does most of it. So he really times his day around drop off and pick up. I say that like this is the first day in 6 weeks though, or this week. But typically, still, we try to keep it so that we, be done by supper time, so that we can do supper. Because Chris is also our main cook, so he likes to wrap it up so that he can switch gears and get to supper.
Outside chance that after supper in the bedtime routine, I'll have to go soak some yarn, like if it's got soak content. Things like mohair you can do the day of, because by the time your pots get to temperature, or mine at least, I use all cold water to start because. In the garage, I only have cold running water.
Oh, that's something people asked last week. We had talked about, like, we used to have a beautiful backyard studio in our old house.
Yeah.
People were like, where does Chris dye now? In the garage.
In the garage. It's less beautiful, but
less
the
glamorous.
upside of this is it's taught me to dye in a way more efficient way.
I think he used to, like, really like lingering by himself in the studio.
I still kind of do.
Oh, I thought you mean efficient in terms of like water and stuff.
I mean efficient.
I thought you meant in terms of his time. Like he used to waste a lot of time because he just liked being out in his studio.
I had my knife making
set
up out there.
Whereas now you don't like love just hanging out in the garage.
Yeah. No, I would rather. The kitchen is just on the other side of the wall with the cappuccino machine.
So he doesn't have to walk through like a blizzard, even if it's just a couple feet. He'd be like,
no, don't have to run back for two missing skeins and stuff. I have all my yarn.
So there's that, but
the biggest plus for me is that I use all cold water, recycle all my water. Because my wash basin's not even hooked into a water system, so there's nowhere for it to go. It stays in buckets.
Yeah.
And I use the gray water graded according to how dark it is. It comes to a point where you can't do much with it anymore, but so much of it can be used twice, whether for soaking or for dyeing. Yeah. And so the year that we've been here, like efficiency in terms of like energy use and stuff is probably improved. Like if I had to put a percent on it, I would say 200.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we I also think it's interesting. Chris dyes hundreds of skeins of yarn, so much yarn, and he only uses 3 pots really. I
do, because I think I had tried one more. I have 4 burners going, but one is just heating the water that I use. I need a bucket of hot water at all times, like sometimes for cleaning purposes, sometimes for whatever else.
To dissolve dye.
So there's one with hot water and 3 with the 3 pots of the yarn going at a time, and it's a very like precise dance of which one becomes available and which one needs the longest
And I just
time.
think it's really interesting because you'll see on Instagram, I'll see other dyers in their setup, and they'll have like they'll be in their garage.
I've seen like 20 pot setups, and we don't have the electricity.
And they've got
for
hotel pans where they've got like racks and racks, and they're doing like 100 different hotel pans. And it's really, really interesting to me because I think everybody just has, like, there's no hand-dyed yarn school, right?
No.
We didn't all go to the same place. We all figured it out on our own and made our own systems. And so it's really interesting that everybody's system is so different, and that's why hand-dyed yarn is so unique and special, because everybody's yarn turns out different because everybody's doing their own thing, just making it up. And our system is very crisp. Even though I started the dyeing, Chris does
That's
all of the
shorthand for
dyeing
inefficient.
it kind of is.
I would argue it's shorthand for.
But I mean, you do it. You get it done. Everything that we need to do.
Creative solutions.
Because there's also, so we talked a lot about your day, which is really funny. I thought Chris's portion of this question was going to be, I dye yarn, the end.
It was. I was told not to do that 10 minutes before we started.
I was like, can you elaborate your answers? Make them interesting. But mine is
30 more seconds.
Oh, go.
To wrap it up.
Go.
The only other, or the I would say 25% of it is the soaking and the prep, 50% is the actual dyeing and figuring out the timing of that, and the rest is we spin it in a laundry spinner. I don't know if there's a particular name or if anyone will know what I'm talking about there.
What's it called? It's called a spinner. It's called a
It's like a dryer alternative where you put it in.
It's like a centrifugal
force. It spins the yarn. I do it one batch at a time.
It's like the spin cycle on.
We didn't used to have it, and we got it while we were still in Point Claire, and it decreases the rack time for the
drying
yarn
time
by
half
at least.
Yeah.
So it's been a huge eye opener and a game changer.
Well, I mean, we've had it for like 5 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but the first several years, we didn't. So we just hanging up like you'd squeeze out water, but
as much
soak
as I
it
could
wet,
by
and it would
hand,
take a couple of days to dry instead of one overnight.
Right.
But yeah, no. So that's a big part. That's something that we often do at night as well, is hanging up all the
dedicated
yarn, one
room in
skein
the
at a
basement,
time.
and racking and skeining is another big part of it.
Yeah. I do every single day is different. Like I do emails, pattern writing, shipping, labeling, developing new things that we're working on. I don't know.
I would not and could not trade jobs with tennis. Like tennis is the heart of this business, and it's like from pattern design. I've never made an Instagram post on the TFA.
Yeah, that's right. That's
like,
not a joke.
Tennis has to handle all the Instagram, all the DMs, all the questions, all the emails, the pattern design, the direction of the business, the nature of the sales we're going to do, everything except standing in the garage and dyeing yarn.
Except for
which she taught me how to do.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So I'm not going to go into every day because every day is different. But what I will say is our system that we have works out super well because even if Chris, like I was teasing that you weren't efficient or whatever, but like if you could dye twice as much, I couldn't ship twice as much. So it really, because it just, we do what we
very organically found our 2-person limit.
Our like happy place. Yeah. So my days are all over the place, and a lot of it, I wish that they were more. I keep thinking I'm going to buy like a day planner and make schedules, but I did that one year, and then I had like an empty planner just staring at me on my desk all year that I never once wrote anything in, so I'm hesitant. But they're on sale now because we're like already a month into the year. So
I wouldn't advise it. Like good luck with that.
It's not how I do
write
it.
down a week ahead and maybe
like
maybe two. Of
I
those
do
days
write
will
down
work
like
out.
in the morning. I'll be like, okay, today on my list was like I wanted to do a ton of shipping, so I shipped until about 1:00 today, and then I wanted to film a podcast, and then that was it. That was my list.
We're nailing it.
We're doing it. But then, I mean, in that, every day I answer emails. Every day I'm active on Instagram. Every day I'm actually, after this, what I want to do is go work on a chart for a pattern that I'm thinking of seeing if I can make happen. So
was it just yesterday? I went to the post office and I think you were finalizing
another
details on a hat pattern.
Like, so every
there's
day.
never a shortage of stuff to do.
Yeah.
And tennis more than me. When I'm not dyeing, I'm not really doing TFA work.
Yes.
Whereas it can creep into your evenings.
I do. Well, I do feel because I knit for pleasure, but also for work.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of always, I'm always. Actually, no, it's not like I'm sitting there at night knitting and thinking like this is labor, this is work. But if I've got something to show for it the next day and I have something to post on Instagram, or it's a pattern that I'm going to be launching or working on, then it is productive time. But I don't think of it that way. Like I still just really enjoy knitting. My dog, I don't know if you can hear her. She's just click-clacking. She's going to start whining.
So the kids are at school in daycare. They can't interrupt us, but Stella is just as bad.
She's just pacing in front of us. And
she's got a martyr face on because no one's put a blanket over her shoulders in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I will probably get up to do so shortly.
Love you, Stella.
She's 14.
Do you want to do the next question?
Yeah, I feel like, how's your days? Mine are crazy. Chris dyes yarn. That's it.
Yep. And
no plan.
If you need like a more elaborate answer, or
it's like one day
something, let us know.
Yeah, one day I'm gonna do like a day in the life type thing.
Yeah.
Or maybe even like a week, and we'll do like what we did every day.
Question number 2. This is also a really good one. How do you decide what size to knit for kids?
Oh, I love this, and that's why I wore this today. Because I have a lot of thoughts. here's my first thought. Kids are super flexible because they look good in everything. They look good in oversized, they look good in kind of small. So they can wear sizes a lot longer than maybe you think. I always size up, like I don't knit them a size that is going to fit them like trim, like tailored. I want it to fit them tailored next year.
Right.
And like, so I first, and which is kind of funny because you make it, you're so excited about it, they put it on and it looks kind of like, oh, you got to roll up the cuffs and maybe like a little bit sloppy and less kind of precise than you wanted. But
which
it's
is
still
super
good.
cute too,
it's
right?
Still
You got to run all the stages. And
yes.
If you're going to work that hard, if you're going to buy yarn, put the time into selecting a pattern and then knitting it, you want to see it through all the seasons.
Yes.
You know, as in, you want to see it baggy with rolled cuffs. You want to see it.
Well, and especially since you say seasons, they are kind of seasonal. So like, the kids can grow a lot over the summer. So if they're not wearing something, anyway. So I always size up. Here's tip number 2, and I typically don't pick super tailored knits, something with like a set-in sleeve or something that's really structured that needs to fit perfectly, because those I find look worse when they're too big. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
It's like a less flexible fit, and that's why I'm wearing this. I actually knit this hoping that my son, my 8-year-old, who is smaller than me, he's like 40 pounds lighter than me. He's much smaller than me, but he wears hoodies that I could wear. Like on me, they're kind of a smaller hoodie, and on him, it's a bigger hoodie. And I'm like, yes, we could wear the same size sweater. I'm gonna knit this small adult size sweater, and he can wear it, and it'll be too big on him, and then I can wear it too, and this is all great. But it's too tailored, and not only it's because it doesn't fit him. It's too big for him. It looked ridiculous. It looked like he was wearing his mom's sweater.
I don't think I saw him put it on even.
So it was fine that he had to roll up the cuffs. That's fine. But it was sort of like the space, these shoulders are saddle shoulders, and they're supposed to fit over the shoulder. Like there's a little point, and then when that doesn't land on the shoulder, then it looks dumb.
Yeah.
Also, this yarn has structure. Like it kind of stands up on its own. It's not drapey. And so then it didn't like just fall on his body. Whereas if he was wearing like a raglan and a merino that is just going to kind of fall, I think you can get away with a lot more flexibility in the pattern. It'll fit for a lot longer. So consider, and I think this is true for an adult garment as well, because I've worn sweaters through 3 pregnancies. I've changed sizes dramatically, and the less kind of structure, built-in positive ease, like something that is designed to look good when it's too big anyways, you're going to get so much more flexibility, so much more wear out of it. And then the last thing I wanted to say was, tunics.
Oh, yeah.
So I've knit a couple for my daughter, and they were they're longer, like they're like dresses.
They start like
when she starts wearing them.
A full sleeve knee length dress, and they end 3 or 4 years later as a long sweater with 3/4 length sleeves. Yeah.
Now she's wearing one. Her Luminosity dress is now her Luminosity t-shirt.
Right.
So also a tee, like a layering piece, like a vest or so there's a vest that Micah's been wearing that was ribbed. It was a cable rib. I'm gonna like put in pictures of everything, but I knit it for Rowan when he was 2 years old.
Yeah.
And my middle son is wearing it now, and he is 6 years old. Now it was like long, kind of too big on Rowan when he was 2, but it's cabled and ribbed, so it really can fit in.
Now it's
stretched out.
Now that you brought up his age, I know you wanted to mention sizing.
Thank you. Yes. So other than, just pick. Not every pattern is going to give you this like super longevity of wear, but if you kind of keep those things in mind, I think. I do have a lot of tips. One of the big things is make sure you have a really loose neck edge, because so I very, very often, if there's a sweater that's designed to be knit top down, where you cast on with your neck and then go down, like cast on, do your neck ribbing, and then carry on with your sweater, I will cast on the body of the sweater and then go back to do the ribbing. I hope that makes sense. But I will cast on, because I can do a really loose bind off of my ribbing, like Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. Or what I can even do is if the kid outgrows it, you can undo the ribbing and like redo the ribbing by picking up fewer stitches to keep it bigger, because I find that's one of the things that as they grow, if they can't get the sweater over their head, like that's a big problem. So you want to make sure you've got a really loose neck opening. And then it's to completely disregard sizing parameters. No, like the sizing given. Kids' patterns are sized in an age. Mine are. It just seems to be like the standard. It's how people do it. Now they're also given the measurements, but I don't actually know like what chest circumference my kids are. It's just like I know my size, I know your size roughly, I like in inches. I don't know my kids, probably because they're always changing. It's easy enough to measure them and then look at the sweater schematic and like do that.
Which I think would be a good idea rather than going with age.
Don't go with the age.
Yeah.
So like my patterns, I don't know. There's no really alternative. You give the sizes in ages because that's just the standard. But then every pattern has a schematic with actual measurements, and look at that. And do not worry if you have a 4-year-old and you choose to knit them the size 8. It's like I'm telling you, it's poppycock because
poppycock. I mean, strong language. Yeah.
I'm passionate about it. Well, just because people get caught up, like I have a 2-year-old, so I have to knit the size 2. So we have a 3-year-old who's turning 4 next month. She's very petite, and she patterns are often sized. There will be a size that is size 4 to 6.
And we have a 6-year-old who will be turning 7 soon, but they will technically be 4 and 6 together. And
they're half. Our baby is half the size of our 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, and half the weight. Like, they could not. They don't both fit into the size 4 to 6. It's just something that I wish there was an alternative. But that's how kids' clothes are sized, and it's like as much as we talk about it for women and like the sizing and numbers and just like how don't let it get in your head and don't care. The numbers are just numbers and like whatever. Same for kids. Like you don't knit them their age. Knit them whatever size you want. I think I've been knitting our 8-year-old an 8 to 10 since he was like 4.
Yep.
And now I need to bump it up because now all of his sweaters are.
He likes it now.
He
though,
likes
right?
a trim. Now his sweaters are like all trim.
Because he deemed one too baggy and went back for an old one that he loves. I guess win-win though when you're talking about 2 wool sweaters.
Yeah.
No wrong thing to pick.
Anyways, but so those are some tips on kid sweaters. I hope that's helpful. I'm not sure.
This one is a good question too. Probably won't take as long to answer. Do you have any insight on how people can afford indie dyed yarn?
Oh, funny. So I don't. Yeah, when I saw this question come in, I don't know if it was intended to be like snarky or if it's
probably not.
Nice.
Maybe a little bit jokey, but
I guess.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say this is quick. I could devote an entire podcast to this, but I'm going to be very, very brief in my answer. And just say that, like, you don't have to. If it's not in your budget, don't buy it because knitting is knitting. I don't know. There's a real thing around indie dyed yarn, and because it is expensive, because it's so labor intensive, it's beautiful fibers, it's beautiful yarn. It has to be expensive, and it is. And I'm not like, I think that's fine. But if you can't afford it, don't feel that you need to.
The price of it needs to reflect what went into it. But
I guess that's what I mean.
If you follow a bunch of indie dyers and love their colors, you can look for that color in a more affordable yarn.
Like there's a lot of great
still
affordable
work
yarn.
Out.
I guess that's what it is.
If you see a pattern, say one of Tanis's patterns,
yeah,
it's going to work if it's not TFA yarn. That's all right,
Yeah.
And you can pick a color you wanted that we do. And if it's too much for you to buy a sweater's worth, then you can find that color or a tone similar.
So what I would say, that's a good point that you say sweater's worth. A sweater's worth of indie dyed yarn is very expensive. One way to be less, or of any, it doesn't even mean indie, of expensive yarn is expensive because you need so much of it. Knitting fingering weight sweaters, you get so much more bang for your buck if you knit finer. Because I can knit, you just like, well, for example, look at my Rocket Tee. It's a fingering weight. Many of the sizes, plus it's sleeveless, require just a few of the sizes require 2 skeins, and then more of the sizes require 3 skeins.
That's the real lesson here.
No, 3. I'm sorry, I'm really not being clear. I'm gonna
go for
be
it.
more specific.
Go for it.
You can knit a fingering weight tee, smaller sizes, 2 skeins. Because I use my Rocket Tee and it stripes 2 colors, you don't you can't knit anything with 3, you need 4 because you need 2 of each.
Right.
If it wasn't striped, then you could do 3. So basically I'm just saying, if you really wanted to use really special yarn, if you pick a project that's like sleeveless, that's fingering weight, obviously you need less. If you wanted to do a shawl, something, I would just go with the thinner yarn. That's what I would do. Because you can also hold it double. If you buy a skein of fingering weight yarn and you're like, I don't want to knit a fingering weight t-shirt, I don't want to knit a fingering weight shawl, hold it double and knit a worsted weight hat. Like there's more flexibility in it and you get more bang for your buck. If you're knitting yourself a sweater out of our new Luxe Yak Silk yarn that is $42 a skein and it's DK weight yarn, and you're going to need somewhere between like 6 to 10 or I don't know, 5 to 9. It really depends on the size and the pattern and whatever. But this is getting a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
And so I would not do that if you're looking to save money. But if you want experience,
or go for it if that's how you prioritize it, right? And like, you
right.
know, but
I mean, I guess
if budget is a concern,
that's why I said
and
I
you
could talk
really
about this for
still-
a very long time.
yeah, you're right. All these questions.
Well, yeah.
If budget's a massive concern and you really want to use hand-dyed yarn, pick a project with that in mind, something, you know, fingering weight skein.
Yeah, I think that there's a
and a
lot of
one-skein
beautiful
project.
one-skein projects, fingering weight projects. I just say bang for your buck because a lot of knitters can knit a hat a night,
Yeah.
and that just feels like a less bang.
You don't
for
have to
your
be
buck.
making cloaks out of yak, so that's
Yeah.
the only thing.
Yeah. So, and then I just really want to make so clear that like I feel that people are self-aware? No, that's not the word. Self-conscious. Like people think that there's some sort of stigma to using non-hand-dyed yarn or like to using commercial yarns or affordable yarns, and it's like I just don't. If there is, it's wrong. Ignore it.
Yeah.
There's no hierarchy of like better knitting in. You can spend all the money in the world on knitting with exclusively cashmere yarn. Doesn't make you a better knitter. Doesn't make your projects better.
No, doesn't make them more wearable. Yeah.
Doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
So knit what you want when you want. I spent years of my knitting career only buying yarn at Walmart because that was my budget. That's what was available. I didn't even know local yarn shops existed. It's just what it was. And
Anything
you still
knit
wear
out
some
of
of those
acrylic yarn, I
sweaters.
still wear, and there's
We love them just
ups
as
and
much,
downs to them.
and I have no shame.
Yeah.
Anyways.
All right, last
That's how I feel
question.
about that.
We only picked 4 because, as you can see, we're able to fill quite a bit of space with each question.
Okay, we'll save the rest.
So the last one for today: how do you come up with your colorways? Do you usually have an idea of how it looks in your head?
So, what do you want it to start?
I can start with this.
Yeah.
So, although I'm the one doing all the physical dyeing in the garage, coming up with colorways is very much a collaborative process. There's definitely one-offs where we get lucky, where I'm trying something and accidentally stumble onto a great new combo that we then use in, maybe several variations over the next course of a year or whatever it be, some that stick around for longer. But normally, Tan's the one with her finger on the pulse of what need there is out there or what is going to go best with an upcoming pattern or project. And so she'll express that to me and we'll work on it through several steps over the course of a week or whatever, till we get something that we're both happy with.
Yeah. So I think that our color development process is very organic in the sense that, like one question that comes up often to hand dyers or pretty much anybody in like a creative industry is, what's your inspiration? Like, where do you get, is it from nature? Is it from art? Is it from, and I really feel pretty strongly that we are inspired in terms of colors by like the process.
Yeah.
Because the way that the dye interacts, the different colored dyes interact with each other to create new colors, and then sometimes speckling, and sometimes, like, it's a very watercolory process where they blend and then they layer, and sometimes it's predictable and sometimes it's kind of unpredictable, and like kind of going with it and seeing where that takes us. Like a lot of the colors end up, I'm talking about kind of more nuanced, like variegated, newer colors. Like a lot of our more original line of colors were created because I wanted a full spectrum of colors. So now we're talking about kind of when we do new speckles or like something new. It's because Chris was dyeing something and something went next to something else and you stumbled across, oh, this is really cool when this mixes. Like, we don't really set out with like a list of, 5 pictures of the forest and be like, I need a color that represents this vibe, like this image. It's like, let's just see what happens. Like, we're really loose with that. But then we will then occasionally expand the spectrum of whatever color. Like, if he dyes a color and there's this really cool section where kind of like, I don't know, like a mustardy color overlapped with a blue and it created something really cool in between, then we'll riff off of that.
You also have to
more like that and see what happens.
Or what I find something that's really important in our process is, as accepting as you are of things that have worked out well, you've got to be honest about what didn't. Maybe we both called for like a bright pink on part of it, and when you look at it, it's too similar to something we're already doing, or just isn't matching what we do like. So it can be stressful in the sense that even though we dye like a pretty high volume of yarn, day 3 of trying the same thing, and you're not certain what you're going to do with the results, and you're not really getting there, you kind of feel like you want to just pick something. As opposed to keep on doing new batches to test, but you got to kind of trust the process. You're going to come up with something that's, that meets the needs, and that's kind of what we do. And things that didn't hit the mark, there's always over dyeing, and that produces some of the coolest results.
Yeah.
And
nothing goes to waste.
No, nothing goes to waste ever. But say you're going for a shade of blue, and it comes out too muted in gray. And you're like, well, put it back in and try it with something else. The results you get from that can sometimes be so surprising and unexpected that, it's like a whole new direction for another.
I mean, I would say happy accident is like our motto.
Yeah, it accounts for a good amount of the discovery of new direction.
And so we generally, we don't do collections. We don't do... Like, how do we do new colors? It's kind of just like we think, oh, it'd be fun to do something like this. I was kind of... Or, so the most recent kind of new colors we did is on the yak silk.
Yep.
And it's like, what does this yarn want to be? What suits this yarn the best?
And that's you're not trying to force anything. It was a darker base.
Yeah.
The blend of wools in it absorbed differently. So once we got it and tried 1 or 2 things, it kind of helped us pick the direction for it. And we came up with a bunch of variations on things we had done and new things. So that's a massive part of it too.
Yeah.
That you can't force
material.
a yarn into something like a preconceived notion.
Yeah.
The bases we've used over the last 10, 12 years, some of them were better for speckling. Some of them were better for variegated colorways. Some of them produce a softer blended tone. And I feel like the bases we use, and that's a big part of shaping your tastes and how things.
Well, then I also think, and this is kind of maybe me. No, I don't think it's overstepping, because this is like my right in being the artistic director of a yarn business. But that, what kind of projects do I want to see knit in, for example, the yak silk? And I want to see, because it's an investment yarn, I definitely want something that's going to have longevity, something you can wear forever. I'm not going to do... we did no speckles, and it's not because I don't think speckles have longevity, but it's because this yarn is so luxe and so elegant that it just felt more sophisticated than that.
Yep.
Speckles can be sophisticated. I'm not whatever, but I don't think that every color needs to be on every base. And for this base, I really feel like this is the types of colors that we chose, kind of like jewel tone colors, rich colors with a lot of depth, is what served it the best.
I think you're right.
And I think that comes into play a lot with it as well. I think, what are people going to be using for this yarn for? And then what is going to give them the best results.
Yeah. That's I think that's only something that comes over time too. It's almost like when you have a whole bunch of tricks in your tool bag, you kind of want to use them all sometimes.
Sure.
And then to lay off and just do something a little more understated seems counterintuitive, but will often get you the best results.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. There's room for both too,
which
is nice. We have some crazy speckles that I love.
Yes.
And we have, things in the cloak range blues with undertones
Yeah.
of red or whatever
Yeah.
that are just knockouts.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to, I don't mean this as a sales pitch, but like the photos don't do them justice sometimes, you know, they change
Yeah.
in the light and stuff. So, you kind of let the canvas guide you a little bit too at this point, right?
We're just a couple of artists.
Man, it's getting so zen
It's
in
getting
here.
so zen. So let's wrap it up.
That was great. It was nice to have the direction from the
Yeah,
the
that is fun.
questions.
And there's more questions, and you guys can obviously send
Feel
me
free
an
to send
email.
more. We love reading them.
There is one thing I wanted to add, though. Do you know what? There were a ton of questions that came in about our origin story, like how we started TFA and what did we do before and all this stuff. And we already did a podcast all about that, episode 1. So if you don't, if you're new here, welcome. And if you'd like to know more about how we started our business, go to podcast episode 1. I'm sorry, the quality, I hope we've improved our quality a little bit since then of gear that we're using to podcast. We have a microphone. I don't know.
It's big time for
It's
us.
pretty legit.
I don't know if you guys know, but we have a microphone.
So we didn't then. Anyways, all that to say. That's it. Check it out. Episode 1. There's lots of good stuff in the archives. So before our next one, we're gonna work on an intro and outro. That's what they call it in YouTube.
That was my outro there. Just a really awkward pause where I looked at you like a deer in headlights.
When Chris is done, he usually just leaves, just walks away. Like Chris.
I literally have yarn on. I mentioned that before.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Stella's going to pee if I don't let her out too, so.
We gotta go. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you next time.
Take care, guys.